This simple formula is going to bring you out of all of your avoidance patterns, but only if you're willing to actually do it. This video can actually be a very, very short video because the answer here, or the formula perhaps, is if you aren't willing to get uncomfortable, then you aren't doing the work. That dropped into me today and it was extremely profound because it resonated with my being in so many ways. See, what does it mean to get uncomfortable? What are we talking about? We're not talking about doing stupid things like skydiving or something like that. I'm not calling them stupid. If that's your passion, great, go ahead and do it. But maybe that is the thing to break through your fear. And that's great, but that's an accessory. What we're talking about here is our avoidance patterns inside of our system. Whenever there's an uncomfortable sensation in the body, because that's all emotions are, aren't they? Is sensations. It's sensational, perhaps. But what we do is we go off into the mind. As soon as that strong sensation comes, we go off into the mind and we avoid in the myriad many ways that we avoid life, isn't it? And then we stay the same. All that life's ever asking us to do is feel. Because in feeling something, we get to garner that little bit of knowledge that's there in it for us. And sometimes that knowledge is just that you aren't in control of life right now, in this moment. Sometimes, on the flip side, this little piece of knowledge is you could be more in control if you learn to change the way you're responding to life. It's a paradox, and that's what makes it so interesting. But the only way we can know which version of this we're in is if we're willing to feel the pain. If we avoid, this is our free will too, isn't it? And sometimes we just have to get ready to be ready to feel the pain. But whilst we're doing that, what are the consequences? The implications of getting ready to be ready to feel the pain is our health is going to start deteriorating, isn't it? Why? Well, because these avoidance structures inside of our psychology around these strong emotions or strong sensations that come into the body don't tend to be the healthiest, do they? It could be with food. It can also be with, alcohol. It can be with, weed and many, many other things inside of ourselves, isn't it? But then what's the consequence of them? Is that we tend to have lower energy. It starts to screw with our mind a little bit because we've not purified the system. And some of us say, don't we? And I hear it a lot. We say, I know that. What do I mean? If you aren't willing to get uncomfortable and nudge into those uncomfortable feelings, you aren't doing the work. Somebody will say, yeah, I know that. And I'm there sitting inside of myself a little bit like, if you knew that, your behavior would be different. Isn't it true that it's our behavior, our actions that show us that we know something? Not just the thoughts, I know that. And isn't it true that if we did stop avoiding the strong sensations in the body, that almost everything in our life could become a possibility for us? Think if you had more energy in your system because you weren't going into these avoidance patterns that destroy the energy in your system, then where could your life potentially take you? What if you weren't doing that thing that was continually damaging your self-esteem, i.e. probably weed or alcohol, because they tend to do that after a while because the thinking goes quite negative, isn't it? Robbing you of your self-esteem, and think about where you might be able to go if you weren't doing that anymore. Sometimes we think, I'm going to lose my freedom. But you won't. This is the price for freedom, isn't it? What we gain is freedom. But what the mind thinks is a loss of freedom, well, maybe we have to test that out, isn't it? Maybe we have to finally take responsibility in ourselves to be able to do the work that works. But are you ready for that? I don't know. Lots of love. Namaste.